Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the Murder Machine. Great name. In part 2 of this list, we mentioned the Devastator, so this time we figured we had to include Murder Machine as well. Bruce Wayne, coming from the dark multiverse, Earth 44, had the same origin with the parents getting popped and all that stuff. He became Batman, he joined the Justice League, but then when Alfred was suddenly killed in the Batcave by some goons, Bruce feels responsible. He watches the footage over and over and over again. It's haunting him. So at Alfred's funeral, Bruce asks Cyborg if he can help him create an AI Alfred. You know, to help around the house, set reminders, lock the doors, all that good stuff. Cyborg agrees and Alfred protocol is underway. Its job was to assist and protect Bruce no matter what. And he was built as a hologram, so he can use weapons and move stuff around. What could possibly go wrong? Day 1, this thing was already spreading itself around, building new bodies, and then it started to take out every criminal in Arkham Asylum. Because they were deemed as threats, of course, so Batman had to adjust a few things, rightfully so. He wanted to allow AI Alfred to have access to the Batcave system, even though Cyborg was like, hey man, that's probably a terrible idea, but you're gonna do it anyways because you're Bruce Wayne. And he did. The AI first went after Bruce's mind because he didn't trust Bruce to keep himself safe. That's so meta. Then he took away Bruce's emotions, strapped him with some advanced tech, and once everybody was deemed a threat to Batman in some way, shape, or form, chaos erupted. A lot of death. Number 9, the Bruce. Coming from the Batman I-Joker storyline from the late 90s, this Batman is known simply as the Bruce, which has a nice little ring to it. I say it like that, the Bruce. Once a year, the Bruce puts on a hunt. The citizens are now allowed to fight and challenge him for the throne. It's called the Night of Blood. Great name. But they also have to fight Batman's villains first, the surgically altered and reprogrammed versions, of course. The Bruce controls them all though, that's the messed up part. He just likes this gladiator, Halloween style night. He just likes violence. Luckily, and I can't believe I'm saying this, luckily a descendant of the Joker came in and put a stop to the Bruce. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, somewhere in that area, that would be great. It really helps our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you for your constant support. Let's keep going. Number 8, Digital Justice Batman. James Gordon II is the grandson, of course, of the Jim Gordon, and after the death of his partner Lena Schwartz, he sees some old newspaper clippings about the Batman, and he feels inspired. He feels like going through his grandfather's stuff. He's learning more, he's grieving, and then that's when he discovers that Gordon left him the Batsuit as well. Bruce Wayne's old Batsuit. How lovely. You should probably wash it twice though, just to be safe, you know? So James took over as the Batman with NetWiz Bobby Chang joining as his sidekick Robin. The two of them were recruited by the Batcom, which was a program set up specifically for this by the original Batman, in order to pass along equipment and tech and all that good stuff. This is a complex online future world that we're now looking at, of course ruled by the digital Joker virus. And I thought that paperclip guy was annoying. Imagine this dude. Jeez.
Coming in at number 7, we have OWLMAN, the evil opposite of Bruce Wayne from the inverted Earth 3. Born under the name of Thomas Wayne Jr., as a young boy, OWLMAN murdered his younger brother Bruce and had his butler Alfred kill his parents to ensure that the Wayne fortune was not wasted by their frivolous spending. Using his costumed identity as OWLMAN to intimidate the leaders of Gotham into falling under his control, OWLMAN was a twisted version of everything that Batman stood for, and every time their universes have crossed over has led to some incredibly dramatic battles. And speaking of evil Batmen named Thomas Wayne...
Number 6, The Doom That Came to Gotham. Written by Mike Mignola and Richard Pace, Batman The Doom That Came to Gotham is a 3-part Elseworlds story where Batman's primary target is that of Lovecraftian monsters. Batman is in this 1920s era, he's rocking a Glock on the front cover. It's gritty, but the threat levels are cosmic. It's a fantastic blend. It's 1928, Bruce has returned home to Gotham a whole 2 decades later after his parents were killed. And he finds the city under attack from all these supernatural forces. It's wild. The way Batman handles these cosmic powerhouses, it's a ride. Even other players in the story are wild too, like Harvey Dent for example. His body started to deform after Poison Ivy touched him, and he was also chosen by Ra's al Ghul to be the living portal to Sotha's realm. Just goo into a wall of... yeah, it's just yuck. Number 5, Bat Joker. This version of Batman came to life in the New 52 Futures End storyline, also known as the Joker Borg. Remember the mayor of Halloween Town and Nightmare Before Christmas? This Bat Joker is kind of like that guy. He's got business in the front and then villain in the back. So Batman created a time-traveling device and sent Terry McGinnis, who I'll explain later on, into the past to prevent Brother Eye from being built by himself and Mr. Terrific. Batman was injured at this time, so Frankenstein took him, as well as the Joker, and then did some fun operation where the two became one cyborg. Batman's brain was literally picked apart here in order to find out where Terry McGinnis had been sent to, and then the Bat Joker was sent back in time as well to stop Terry. Bat Joker was heavily equipped though. He was loaded with super strength, so much so that this Bat Joker was amongst the strongest of the cyborgs of the end future. Number 4, Terry McGinnis. Of course we have to mention him now in case you're wondering, wait, who's this guy again? The year is 2039. Bruce Wayne had retired, but Project Cadmus director Amanda Waller was looking for a replacement for Batman, beginning with Project Batman Beyond. A major key element here was using the original Batman's blood samples left over after his fights and mix it in with some nanotech. Now we have the DNA, we just need a family to raise the kid. Amanda found the McGinnis household with Warren and Mary a perfect fit, as they were both psychologically identical to Thomas and Martha Wayne. One flu shot later, they were about to be the new parents of a new Batman. But obviously in Batman fashion, during Terry's teenage years, his father got killed, and Terry believed it was all because of the corrupt CEO, Derek Powers. So he asked for the help of the other guy part of this merger, that guy being Bruce Wayne. He didn't know anything at this point, but after a confrontation against the Joker's gang, Terry realized, oh, Bruce is the OG Batman. So Terry stole all his stuff and suited up himself as the new Batman Beyond. What an origin story. So sick. We had to include him in this list. Not so much weird. I mean, besides the whole, flu shot, now I'm alive thing. Guess we can make that weird and include it. Number 3, OWLMAN. Coming from Earth 3, making his first appearance in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 23, OWLMAN is actually not Bruce Wayne, but rather Bruce's older brother, Thomas Wayne Jr. See, instead of their parents getting shot, Thomas Wayne Jr. actually believed that they were doing such a poor job of managing their money, so he got Alfred to do it for them. He got Alfred to kill his parents, and then when young Bruce Wayne was trying to stop this horrible plan from happening, Thomas Wayne Jr. took out his own brother. He saw this as a sign of weakness. What a psycho. So with the family's wealth now, he became OWLMAN. As a Cape Crusader, Thomas was he was the worst. I mean, the guy didn't mind using deadly force, for one, he actually preferred it. And what's a hero without a sidekick? This world's Dick Grayson tagged along and joined him, but that was after OWLMAN himself killed Dick's family. So a little bit of a twisted origin there too. And of course, there was also an evil super team, the Crime Syndicate.
Number 2, Nemesis. Nemesis is probably one of the most brutal Batman alternates we've ever encountered. Probably also because he doesn't even hail from DC Comics himself, but instead is a creation of Mark Millar's, who hails from Icon Comics. Mark Millar doesn't hail from Icon Comics, but this character does. Mark Millar does many things. Well, we do have an elaborate backstory for Nemesis, which involves him also seeking vengeance for the death of his parents, but in a much more twisted way. Since his parents were actually the worst kind of wealthy folks and murderers themselves, it's never really even confirmed that this backstory is the true backstory of Nemesis. In fact, it's even implied in the story that Nemesis could actually be multiple people who just cause mayhem and death and destruction because, well, maybe they just enjoy it? The whole idea of the character and everything that he does is pretty messed up and is quite dark. Nemesis provides a much more villainous take on the idea of vigilantes and how motivation can mess you up, or alternatively, how you really don't even need motivation to become a messed up and brutal vigilante in the first place. Also power. Lots of things about power, because that's how it goes.
Number 1, the God of Knowledge. Weird, magical, wonderful? Question mark? I'm not even sure what to call this one, but it's quite entertaining to say the least. The Mobius chair is the lazy boy of the galaxy. It made its first appearance in New Gods issue 1, and the chair was created by the Anti-Monitor. He gave the chair to Metron, but at one point Batman saw an opportunity of a lifetime. The chair was unused for a hot second, so Batman, king of musical chairs and problem solving, jumped on it and in turn became the god of all knowledge. How wonderful. At this point, the stakes are high. This couldn't have happened at a better time, honestly. The whole team was busy fighting Darkseid. Meanwhile, Batman's just floating in a chair in the background, figuring out the secrets of the universe, just trying not to throw up, trying to process all of this power. And that's when the Green Lantern adds a little bit of fun to this mix and tosses over his power ring. Just something to help Bruce get a grip. He puts it on Bruce's finger, power lights up the place, and he gets off the chair with a glowing lantern on his chest, right in the middle of the bat symbol. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have DAWNBREAKER. This version of Bruce Wayne first appeared in Dark Days The Casting issue 1, residing in, of course, the Dark Multiverse on Earth 32. The story picks up with the usual Bruce Wayne origins. His parents are both taken out by Joe Chill that night, but here young Bruce Wayne comes into contact with a Green Lantern ring. So Bruce approaches Joe and he's pretty pissed at this point. He's going for blood right off the bat. He ended up turning Joe Chill into bones and dust. And then when Bruce met Gordon, they got off on the wrong foot initially as well. Gordon greets him and he's like, Green Lantern, wasn't sure you'd show up. And then Bruce straight up's like, hey man, don't threaten me. Really awkward vibes, just quick awkward vibes right off the bat, no friendship there. He was taking out Gotham's villains super quick. Each time he did it, he would scream and yell about how much his parents deserved to not be dead. He flew the Penguin into outer space. That's how you handle a guy right there. You take him and you go, right off planet. Okay, so with all of these brutal assassinations, the rest of the Green Lanterns knew they had to come and put a stop to this madness. Only it wasn't that easy. Bruce destroyed all of them. He executed the entire Guardians of the Universe. Beware his power, Dawnbreaker's might. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It helps our channel out and the studio quite a bit. You guys are super supportive. Thank you so much. Click, 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 and then we'll continue. Okay, let's do it. Number 9, Speeding Bullets Batman. There's a name. This Elseworlds storyline showed us what would happen if Kal-El's ship did not crash land in Smallville, but rather it landed in Gotham. So when the inevitable did happen and his parents were attacked and killed that night, Bruce Wayne, real named Kal-El, used his alien powers and unwillingly killed the robbers. His powers just came out in the form of heat vision. Toast. They didn't make it at all. No chance. And after this point, Bruce Wayne wasn't the same. He was ruthless. He had the powers of a god and so much anger, guilt, and pain inside. He had no idea what to do with this. So he would just repeat over and over, the bullets, the bullets, the bullets. Like he was in bad shape mentally. He hid from the world in his mansion of solitude, and he couldn't even look at photos of anything related to death as it was super triggering. And then one night, a group of robbers tried to invade said house, but again, heat vision wins this round. Didn't make it. A little older and a little wiser, Kal-El decided that now is time to use his powers to get the job done. Help out, you know, be a role model. He took up the identity of the Batman, but still, just because he rocked the cape doesn't mean he was doing all the right things. For example, when Lois Lane was kicked out of Lex Luthor's limo later on, she was about to be attacked by thugs, but Batman came in and burned their flesh while splintering their bones. Or you could fly them to jail. Or vaporize their eyes. That works too. You can vaporize their eyes. That's sure, that gets the job done. Number 8, Red Sun Batman. Superman Red Sun was released in 2003. It earned Mark Millar an Eisner Award nomination in 2004, but he always wondered what life would be like if Superman was raised in the Soviet Union. What a fun idea. So in this story, the ship lands on a Ukrainian collective farm instead of Texas, and as for Bruce Wayne in this reality, well, his parents still end up biting the bullet, but this time it's by Stalin's police force. So his main goal was to get back at that captain of said police force, Roslov. This version of Batman, I mean, just look at the attire. How do you not love him off the bat? He kidnapped Wonder Woman, tied her up with her own lasso, rude, and then used her to draw Red Sun Superman out. And of course, it worked like a charm. Using simulated red sunlight, he weakened Superman, locked him in a basement, ideally forever, but Wonder Woman broke free, took care of those red sun lamps, and right before Batman was about to get the beatdown of his life, he detonated a bomb in his own chest. Honestly, I think Red Sun Superman would still be a lot more painful than a chest bomb. I mean, still dark either way. Number 7, 1800s Batman. Batman Gotham by Gaslight, a tale of the Batman, written by Brian Augustin and brought to life by Mike Mignola. Here comes the tale from the Victorian era where Batman is hunting down Jack the Ripper. So it's 1889, and while these attacks are happening over and over, the general public is starting to whisper through the winds and talk amongst themselves in the shadows that maybe, just maybe, it's Batman who is committing these crimes because, well, he's dressed like that. Pretty fair assumption. We love some Victorian drama. Let's get spooky. So we get historic killers here, we get old-timey gangs, Bruce gets framed. It's an entirely new version of Batman, but it's an older take on the Caped Crusader. To see Batman purely rely on his detective skills more than anything makes for a really enjoyable story. I mean, there's no crazy gadgets or cool Batmobile that flicks him up a building. He's just like, I got it, I'm a detective, let's do this. Steampunk Batman for the win. It got the feature film treatment in 2018 with Sam Liu directing, so if you're looking for an old-timey superhero animated flick with Jack the Ripper, there you go. Just made your day. What do you know? Number 6, Thomas Wayne. Coming from the Flashpoint storyline released back in 2011, written by Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert, Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, was actually the one to become Batman in this timeline. Now in this universe, Bruce Wayne was the one who got shot that fateful night and he bit the bullet. The world of Flashpoint is this altered reality where Barry accidentally ends up in, where Batman is older and much more violent, and not so much as a detective like Bruce. See, what happened was, in this alternate reality, Bruce's mother, Martha, is so traumatized that she becomes the Joker. That's why during the opening credits of Batman vs Superman, we were all pumped in the theater because Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohen, two amazing actors, were in such a small opening scene as Bruce's parents, with zero dialogue. Now with recent set photos of Michael Keaton in the new Flash movie, we're still in for a great time, but we were so close to the best Flash movie with Jeffrey Dean Morgan as a dark Thomas Wayne. Jeffrey Dean Morgan did say on Twitter that ever since Zack Snyder walked away, his whole bit in that world has walked away with him. But we still got Michael Keaton, so it's still fine. It's good. It's good. Number 5. Red Death. Coming from the Dark Multiverse, Earth 52, first appearing in Dark Days The Casting Issue 1, Red Death Batman used to be a hero who fought alongside Robin in his world. The events that transpired in Batman's life were taking a harder toll on him. He was watching all of these sidekicks just bite the bullet, so he was desperate to find this new power, a new way to get ahead of these horrible crimes. So he looked at his world's Flash. Batman honestly believed that he could use the Speed Force better than the Flash, so he took out all the Flash's villains, stole all their tech, and then he himself fought the Flash, and he was winning. He drove the two of them into the Speed Force because he had merged his Batmobile with the Cosmic Treadmill. That's always fun. And then that's when he absorbed all of Barry's powers. He did it. After Batman came back from the Speed Force, he referred to himself as Batman, the Red Death, where he would easily and brutally kill Gotham's rogues. All the while, Barry's consciousness is begging him to stop inside of him. It's kind of like a nightmare, this version. Definitely a nightmare. Number 4, Azrael. Right after the 1993 Nightfall story, when Batman got his back broken by Bane, just absolutely wrecked, he decided to pass the Batman mantle right on to not Dick Grayson. No, instead he chose Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael. His run on Batman wasn't the same as Bruce's. I mean, for starters, Azrael's methods were pretty violent and quite irresponsible. In all fairness, he was capable of defeating Bane with this new tricked out batsuit, but this guy thought that he was actually an all-round better Batman and a permanent successor rather than a replacement. Got news for you, pal. So once Bruce did recover, he had to force Azrael to leave the position. Even the style changes were quite drastic. Azrael made more than a few changes to the suit. Now it's black and yellow, this metallic armor, and then he added some other gadgets like claws, dual mag weapons, and of course, a cape. Just to, you know, because he's a hero, he needs a cape.
Number 3, Murder Machine. With an identical upbringing as the Batman we all know and love, Earth -44's Bruce Wayne ended up with one more tragic death in his life, the murder of his butler Alfred. Blaming himself for Alfred's death, Bruce enlisted the help of CYBORG to create the Alfred Protocol, a powerful AI and hologram with the intent of keeping Bruce safe at all costs. Within one day of the Alfred Protocol being up and running, it had executed all of the criminals in Arkham Asylum as he deemed them a threat to Bruce. Eventually, Bruce started to doubt his abilities to keep himself safe and relied on the AI Albert heavily, having him remove his ability to feel fear and sadness and then replace his entire body with a mechanical one that would never fail him. This was the birth of the Murder Machine, and thus began this Earth's demise. Murder Machine represents Batman's fear of not being as self-sufficient as he thinks, his father-son relationship with Alfred, and the regret of cutting off other people.
Number 2. Batman. Coming from Earth 43, Batman is, well, he's just that. He's Batman who doubles down as a vampire. Nice. We see him for the first time in Batman and Dracula Red Reign. His origins are the same for the most part, how he became Batman because of his parents, all that jazz. That's the same. But then when he's patrolling one night, he starts to find victims all with the same injury. Their throats have been just slashed apart. Who could have done this? Why, Dracula himself, that's who. He gets help from a rogue vampire named Tanya, who was once part of Dracula's posse. And Batman is so wild, this guy willingly gets bitten by a vampire to become one, so then he can take on Dracula. Whatever it takes to get the job done, I respect that a lot. And finally, number 1. Batman, the God of all knowledge. The Mobius chair made its first appearance in New Gods issue 1, and the chair itself was created by Mobius, aka the Anti-Monitor. He gave the chair to Metron, but when Metron took his eye off the prize for a minute, Batman ended up becoming the God of all knowledge for a short time. What happened was Wonder Woman grabbed Metron with her lasso, yanked him right off, and then before boom tubes were summoned or anything like that, Batman just took that chance that he had and jumped on the chair. Musical chair style. Then the Dark Knight becomes the Bright Light. The whole team at this time is fighting Darkseid, and Batman's just floating in the background, just trying to figure out the universe. He's just searching for solutions via the cosmic realm. It's pretty spectacular. Things took a jump to overdrive when he also received a power ring. I thought he was a good detective before, but now, I mean, that's just OP.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Bat-Zaro from Bizarro World. Hailing from the planet founded by Superman's own twisted doppelganger, Bat-Zaro is the self-proclaimed world's worst detective, and spends his nights shooting down couples in Crime Alley as an awful inversion of Bruce Wayne's motivation for being Batman. More of a weird comedic foil to Batman than an actual supervillain threat, Bat-Zaro would eventually try to redeem himself by fighting the Joker and jumping in front of a bullet meant for the real Batman, meaning maybe Bat-Zaro had a little bit of good in him after all. Coming in at number 9, we have the Red Death. The first of many Dark Knights on this list, twisted variants of Bruce Wayne that banded together to escape their dying dark multiverse, the Red Death is a chilling example of what Batman could become if he cared more for his mission than he did for his friends. After the deaths of many of his allies in Gotham City, this version of Batman determined that he was more worthy of using the Speed Force than Barry Allen, and could have saved Robin's life if he was only a bit faster. Unfortunately, this version of Bruce took this plan way too far, capturing the Flash and combining his powers into himself, becoming the Red Death and forcing Barry Allen's consciousness to watch as he began killing every supervillain on the planet and continued his rampage across the entire multiverse. Coming in at number 8, we have the Dawnbreaker. In a dark multiverse world where Bruce Wayne was the one gifted a Green Lantern ring instead of Hal Jordan, this version of Bruce quickly became frustrated with all of the restrictions the Lantern Corps placed on his ring and his ability to wield emotions. Killing every criminal he encountered, Batman's power grew as he combined his ring with the darkness in his own heart, becoming known as the Dawnbreaker as he systematically wiped out every other Green Lantern in the galaxy. By the time he was done, he was the only lantern-wielding entity left in his universe, and joined the Dark Knights in order to find more victims to punish.
Number 7, Clone Batman. When Darkseid created a clone of Batman, he used it to make the world believe that Batman had died, when in reality, Darkseid actually sent Bruce back in time with his Omega beams. That's a pretty impressive trick already, but things go up a notch when that clone is revived as a Black Lantern and seeks out our remaining alive heroes. His job was to attach other rings to other heroes who have been resurrected before, but after he was done, he went back to get some beauty death sleep. In Batman and Robin issue 8, that Batman is revived using the Lazarus Pit, where he instantly attacks Dick Grayson, Batwoman. I mean, he's just going nuts at this point. He was strong too, he was really strong. The next issue, the clone took off after King Cole triggered an explosion, and then he took off and headed for Wayne Manor, where he then fought Alfred and Damian Wayne. Just going for blood right off the bat. Pun intended. Damian was tossed off the roof by Crazy Batsy, but thankfully Dick got him just in time. And in issue 9, the clone lost to Batwoman and Dick. Good ending-ish.
Coming in at number 6, we have the Batman of the Flashpoint universe, aka Thomas Wayne Sr. In a world where Bruce was gunned down by Joe Chill instead of his parents, Thomas Wayne became a dark and murderous red-tinted Batman, while Martha would be cursed to become this universe's version of the Joker. While initially an anti-hero ally during the first reveal of the Flashpoint universe, this Batman would go on to become a threat to the real Batman when he returned to the main DC universe and allied himself with Bane in order to get Bruce to quit being Batman forever. There's probably an easier way to get your son to stop being a superhero than allying yourself with a supervillain, but hey, I guess that's just some Wayne family drama that will continue to unfold as Thomas Wayne continues to make his way through the DC multiverse.
Number 5, the Merciless. This alternate version of Bruce is one who ends up wielding the power of Ares in the memory of Wonder Woman. Oh yeah, and he's also the one who fought with Diana to the very end against Ares before he inevitably was kind of forced to kill her. Or forced in his eyes, but in our eyes we're like, Bruce, don't do that. Don't do it. This alternate version of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, hails from the dark multiverse of Earth at -42 and is one of the Batman who laughs Dark Knights. To me, he represents Bruce's obsession with power and symbolizes what could very well happen if this was left unchecked. Bruce here loved Diana, but still ended up betraying her because he knew that she would not allow him to keep the power of Ares for himself and that she would rather destroy such power. So he was like, I gotta hold on to the power because I'm doing great with it. So I guess I gotta kill ya. But also, he wasn't doing that great with it. Spoiler alert.
Coming in at number 4, we've got another of the Dark Knights with Murder Machine. This version of Bruce Wayne comes from a universe very similar to the main DC continuity until the tragic death of Alfred Pennyworth at the hands of multiple Batman villains. Heartbroken and traumatized by the footage of the incident, Batman convinces his friend CYBORG to recreate Alfred's personality as an artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, this AI takes its task of protecting Batman far too literally, altering his brain chemistry to erase any sense of fear and completely replacing Bruce's frail human body with a metal replacement. Taking the name of Murder Machine, this Batman spread the Alfred AI throughout Gotham and was able to kill every criminal in Arkham Asylum, showing what would truly happen if Batman didn't have a heart. Coming in at number 3, we have the Devastator, a horrifying combination of Batman and Doomsday. This story takes place on one of the many dark multiverse worlds that saw Superman going rogue and taking over the entire planet, even murdering his own wife. To stop the demented Man of Steel, this Batman was forced to ingest the Doomsday virus, a last-ditch effort to save the planet that gave Bruce the strength to kill Superman, but at the terrible cost of his own mind. Furthermore, the Doomsday virus began to spread off Bruce's body and kill off the rest of this world, dooming the planet anyways, and leaving the Devastator as a beast-like Batman waiting for the rest of the Dark Knights to save him from his collapsing planet and give him a new target to hunt, even if eventually this Doomsday Batman hybrid would be defeated by, you guessed it, the real Superman. Coming in at number 2, we have the Emperor of Shadow, aka Bruce Wayne. In a recent one-off issue entitled Batman Superman Authority Special, Batman discovers a reality from the dark multiverse where Ra's al Ghul's plans to dominate humanity have come to pass, and the League of Shadows has become an Empire of Shadows, controlling the entire world. To make matters worse, the leader of this empire is a Bruce Wayne who gave in to Ra's al Ghul's teachings and embraced his position as the world's new emperor. While Batman and Superman were eventually able to destroy the link between this world and the regular DC universe in order to prevent an invasion, this twisted version of Bruce Wayne is still out there, likely biding his time until the next opportunity arises for the dark multiverse to attack the regular multiverse once again. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the Batman Who Laughs. In a dark alternate world where the Joker realizes he's dying and begins a mass killing spree of everyone in Gotham, Batman is forced to finally kill his fated foe. Unfortunately, at the moment of death, Bruce was infected with a special brand of Joker venom that completely flipped his moral compass, but left intact all of his intelligence and planning. All of the chaos of the Joker with the brains of Batman, this supervillain is Bruce Wayne's worst nightmare come to life, and so far remains the most evil and deadly variant to ever be seen across the entire dark multiverse.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Devastator. There's a name right there, okay. Bruce Wayne of Earth 1 made his first appearance in Dark Days, the casting. This Batman is one of Barbados' Dark Knights. Now, he started out the usual Batman way, lost his parents, became Batman, hung out with the Justice League. He actually got along with Superman quite well. He genuinely believed in his ideals of hope. But it is Batman we're talking about. Just because he trusted him doesn't mean he wasn't always prepared. Bruce kept the Doomsday virus just in case. So when Superman did go on and become a little crazy and started killing people, Batman figured, okay, now is the time to use this thing. Bruce first used a kryptonite spear to try and do the trick, but Superman just monologued in his face. Nothing was working. So now it's Doomsday time. The Devastator was born. The virus changed Batman instantly, physically of course, but also mentally. Now he had no problem killing what used to be one of his best friends. Using kryptonite breath, Bruce weakened the god and then finished him with some Doomsday spikes. Nice dark note to start the list off. There we go. Number 9, Multiverse Bat Baby. In part 1 of this list, we of course had to mention the time Batman was shrunk down to the size of a baby, so naturally in part 2, we need more baby goodness. Dark Knights Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights issue 1. Bruce has a plan. Now this version was planning on living a second lifetime. More crimes to solve, more risks to break, more bills to pay. The man is committed. Now he had already taken down the Joker, Riddler, Two-Face, and Scarecrow at this time, but he wanted more. After his passing, his mind was safely stored stored in the cyberspace, and it was then transferred into this new body waiting in the Batcave. This time seems way harder for Bruce. See, in the early issues, he just made little trousers and still continued to fight crime. It was fun, it was almost cute. Here, he was rolling downstairs. He couldn't even walk. He probably his pants, and then he just lays down and cries for the rest of the day. The best part is that he has the mind of Bruce still, so those tears just aren't baby tears. That's pure agony. Now he finally figured out, how to use his legs in life. He gets the jetpack to make up for those tiny legs, and he still goes on saving the day as the guardian of Gotham. And before we continue on with this weird list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It helps us out so much. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to the video. Also, thank you for 1.1 million subscribers. That's huge. That was a nice thing to wake up to. Number 8, Darkclaw. Veering out of the Dark Multiverse for a hot minute, we have to talk about Darkclaw. Coming from the Amalgam universe, where DC and Marvel combined powers, literally, we get a Wolverine-Batman mix. He first appeared in Legends of the Darkclaw issue 1 back in 1996, and his origin story is a hot mess. At just age 5, Logan Wayne witnessed the death of his parents. The usual stuff, but then he was sent to live with his uncle in Alberta, Canada. Better bring a jacket. It's cold. His uncle too bit the bullet after poachers ambushed him. So Logan Wayne enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force when he was of age, and shortly after was submitted into the Weapon X program. So much Amalgam fun. There Logan got the adamantium treatment, but the Weapon X program was terminated because it was deemed a failure. Why, you ask? Logan Wayne still retained his conscience. So where to go next but to travel the world? Logan studied abroad. He studied a variety of crime-fighting skills in his time. He studied criminology, forensics, martial arts, gymnastics, you name it. This guy learned all 127 major styles of combat. And yes, Thumb Wars is included. You never know, you never know. That mixed with Wolverine's abilities, I mean, you're screwed. Good game. Number 7, Magic Batman. Superman Batman Sorcerer Kings is a 4-parter written by Cullen Bunn, beginning with Superman Batman issue 81. On the cover we see Batman's tool belt, but this time it's made of elixirs and potions. What's the deal here? So after witches and warlocks tried to sacrifice our sun, things went south, and now every electronic was literally vaporized. That means no more TikTok, sorry. The future was looking quite grim. To see Batman punch warlocks and witches in the mouth, I mean, at one point he says, no more hocus pocus. In part 2, Bruce pulls out a whistle, obviously he gets mocked, and then when the Batwing arrives, it's more than useful. The Batwing being a magical dragon, of course. Number 6, Emo Batman. Back in 1999, we got to see one of the moodiest versions of Bruce Wayne. Coming from Elseworlds' 80-page giant, he was one of the members of the group the Pennyworths, who was discovered and signed by Lex Luthor. This sounds funny considering the Batman we know and love, but it's still really sad. For example, Lex didn't care about the well-being of who he signed as long as they're making that moolah. And on top of that, Bruce was struggling with substance abuse problems, and his last album bombed. It didn't even go gold. How sad is that? So soon after, Lex sold his record label to Darkseid Incorporated. Imagine watching Battle of the Bands and emo Bruce Wayne starts setting up shop. What a dream show. Number 5, Prohibition Batman. This alternate version of Batman first appeared in Batman Scar of the Bat, but this time it was Elliot Ness. Elliot was a federal agent, and instead of going toe-to-toe with the Joker, Elliot is now trying to bring down Al Capone. Now, of course, this takes place during the Prohibition era in Chicago, and Elliot was part of a team referred to as the Untouchables. I love this alternate version because it's real history that's being played with. Elliot Ness was a real guy who led the Untouchables in 1903. The story is a fun one-off, but Elliot does reappear later on in Teen Titans Volume 3, Issue 31. It's a brief appearance, but he's still out there. I wonder if real-life Elliot Ness ever read DC Comics back in those early days. Him and his Tommy gun reading Batman in a speakeasy? I can see it. Number 4, Batman the Silenced. The original Hush storyline by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee introduces Bruce's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot. Out of jealousy, he tries to take down Batman using the alias Hush, but in Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush, we see a different life play out this time. When Thomas and Martha Wayne were shot that fateful night, Bruce was of course devastated, but Alfred didn't end up taking him in like normal continuity. Instead, he was taken in by those Elliots. Bruce didn't work through his trauma by fighting crime and saving lives. Instead, he grew more and more unstable from his childhood, so much so that the Elliots transferred him to a mental asylum, while Thomas Elliot grew up to take control over Wayne Industries. Horrible, what a horrible alternate reality. So once Tommy became a senator, he was able to transfer Bruce to Arkham Asylum, where Jonathan Crane would perform these operations. While in there, Alfred sent in Jack Napier as a mole to help Bruce, and Alfred also told Bruce about his parents and what really happened. So Jack was in there to help Bruce get in touch with people who can help him get payback. So he received training in every field from lunatics in Arkham Asylum. He came out talented but tainted after faking his own death. Once free, he went by the name of Batman the Silenced. Number 3. Saint Batman. We'll ride the dark multiverse train out a little more, taking a look now at Jean-Paul Valley. The original story took place when Batman got his back by Bane in 1993. AZRAEL took over for the Bat while Bruce healed up, and then things went back to normal over time. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Nightfall, we see a world where Jean-Paul Valley refused to give the cape back. They went at it at the Batcave, and instead of Bruce reclaiming the costume, he got a devastating hit to the spine. And to make matters even worse, Saint Batman kept Bruce alive, just, without any body parts, of course. His physical strength is unmatched. This Batman juices. He uses venom in his suit, so he operates at a superhuman level. The ultimate backbreaker this time. Number 2. Speeding Bullets Batman. This Elseworlds storyline shows us a future where Kal-El landed in Gotham and was subsequently adopted by the other Martha Wayne. The Waynes did end up meeting their fate, regardless of the fact that their newly adopted son has laser vision. He didn't realize at the time that he could fire heat rays until right after they had died. I mean, that's fair, trauma does things to the body. After this point, Super Bruce wasn't the same at all. He had the powers of a god, but the hatred of the devil. He was a conflicted man. He would repeat the line, the bullets, the bullets, the bullets, over and over again. He was mentally unstable, obviously. So he hid from the world in his mansion of solitude, and over time, Bruce decided that he should use his powers and just be a hero, instead of hiding. Taking up the identity of the Batman, he would patrol the streets looking for crime, but like I said, he was still a troubled guy. His version of saving the day was burning the flesh off of criminals. Number 1. Thomas Wayne. Coming from the FLASHPOINT storyline released in 2011, writer Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert brought us Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, when he was actually the one to become Batman. See, in this universe, Bruce Wayne was actually the one who got shot that night in the alley. The world of FLASHPOINT is this altered reality that Barry accidentally ends up in, where Thomas is older, more brutal, and he's like this evil, dark Batman. And Bruce's mother, Martha, becomes so traumatized by what happens to her son that in this reality she becomes the Joker.
Number 10. Reverend Bruce Wayne. Reverend Bruce isn't particularly scary to begin with, but the world he comes from and the fight he fights is definitely scary. This is a version of Batman who isn't just taking up the mantle to fight his parents' killers and rid Gotham of crime, but instead is attempting to fight against a whole political and societal system. In the Elseworlds story Batman Holy Terror, the course of history is changed somewhat so that America is basically still part of the Commonwealth. As such, it turns out that the seemingly random mugging and murder of Bruce's parents was not actually so random, and was actually a government hit that was later made to look like a mugging gone wrong. When Reverend Bruce finds out about this, he dons a demon costume that once belonged to his father Thomas and sets out to investigate. He also goes on to find out about government-run human experiments and an alien whom they captured, raised, and later killed with green rocks when he became too hard to control. Poor would-be Superman. Number 9. Gods and Monsters Batman. This version of Batman is not Bruce Wayne, but is instead Kirk Langstrom. In this reality, there is no Bruce Wayne to take up the mantle, and so Kirk ends up with the name himself. Not because he was inspired by a bat smashing through a window, of course, but because he is kind of actually part vampire bat. Kirk was a brilliant scientist who was working on a cure for lymphoma. He eventually figured out how to create this cure using bat saliva and nanotech to strengthen his experimental treatment. However, while it succeeded in curing his cancer, it also turned Kirk into a pseudo-vampire. While he remains a hero and typically only ingests artificially created plasma or even animals' blood, which can also help him to survive, he has also been known to feed on criminals from time to time. He's like, these criminals, nah, I gotta eat, they kinda deserve it, I'm just gonna eat them. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more scary alternate Batman lists, of which, let's be real, there's a lot of scary alternate Batman out there, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Spooky thumbs up, spooky spook. Number 8. DCEU Batman, or Batfleck if you prefer. Ben Affleck's Batman from Batman vs Superman especially is a much darker figure in comparison to the comics, and kind of in comparison to a lot of other Batmen that have been on the big screen. This is a version of the hero who has decided that he is willing to kill when he needs to. All in all, it seems to be implied that the death of Jason Todd is what reshaped Batman's morals here and caused him to readjust his code. Not only does he kill, but he also does something even worse in my opinion, branding some of the worst criminals that he fights against with a literal bat brand. These are the criminals that Batman has deemed to have done something completely unforgivable. And the thing is that people in prison in Gotham also know the significance of the bat brand, meaning that those who end up with one are basically marked for death. The idea here is that the inmates will carry out the death sentence that Batman has marked them with because they know that whatever this person did, it was one of the worst crimes. Otherwise they wouldn't have this brand. So not only is there an extra layer of fear, but this also shows a complete disregard for human life. I mean, at least a disregard for human life when it comes to really terrible criminals. Batman wants these criminals to live in fear, and he doesn't care what happens to them in prison. In fact, he kinda hopes that they end up dead. Number 7. Batman the Silenced. One perfect spine-chilling dark multiverse tale that I have loved, which even comes with its own creepy lullaby, is the Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush. In this story we get a reimagined narrative where Batman's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot, is the one who ends up messing up Bruce's life. Tommy in his adult years allies himself with many of Gotham's villains and more usually anti-hero types after Bruce Wayne ends up in Arkham Asylum, which also was kind of part of his doing. However, Bruce isn't quite as checked out as he's been pretending to be, and he ends up escaping in order to get revenge and taking up the mantle of Batman the Silenced, an alternate version basically of Hush, and of course an alternate version of Batman. Number 6. Vampire Batman. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the alternate Earth 43. As his moniker describes, he is a version of Bruce Wayne who transforms into a more literal version of Batman when he becomes a vampire. Batman. Get it? Cause vampire bats. Oddly enough, this is also not the only version of Batman in the multiverse that also happens to be a vampire, as you already know, because we talked about Gods and Monsters Batman as well, who's also a vampire. Despite being a vampire on Earth 43, Bruce still fights on the good side, fighting against his vampiric urges to feed on human blood. At least, initially he fights against them. At one point, Vampire Bats asks Alfred to stake him in order to prevent him from giving in to his bloodlust, after he seemingly killed the Joker by draining him of all of his blood. However, a stake through the heart doesn't actually kill Batman here, but simply leaves him in a coma. Months later, Gotham is in a pretty bad place without Batman's presence, and Alfred is forced to awaken him in hopes that Gotham will once more have a savior. Batman does go about taking out criminals, but in a very vampiric way, creating a bloodbath as his time staked and his bodily decay has resulted in the loss of his sanity. So he's there and he's killing criminals, but he's like killing criminals, and it's like a lot.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Merciless, another of the Dark Knights. In an alternate universe in which Ares, the god of war, declared war against all of existence, Batman stood with the rest of the Justice League in a battle that literally lasted for eons, until the sole combatants left in the entire universe were Ares and Batman, still standing through sheer willpower alone. After landing a blow that knocked Ares' magical helmet off, Batman was forced to put the helmet on to finally defeat the God of War, leaving him the only survivor of this burned out universe. This Batman unfortunately became addicted to the power and bloodlust granted to him by the helmet, and joined forces with the rest of the Dark Knights in order to survive the destruction of his universe, going forth to find new worlds for him to become a new God of War against.
Number 4. The Bruce. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the reality belonging to Batman I Joker. Here Batman is a tyrant and a symbol who is worshipped as a god. This is not our own Bruce Wayne, by the way, but like a dystopian, almost cyberpunk future version of the character where the people of Gotham see him as their ruler and god. In fact, I don't even know if this guy's name is actually Bruce Wayne or is Bruce at all. I think he's just a person that's elected and like that's the role you play, or that seized power. The people of Gotham worship him and his mission for vengeance. The whole comic is pretty horrifying to read and reveals how even the best of heroic intentions can be perverted over time. Nothing scarier than just humanity and the way that we think things through and can like take a good idea and make it into something a lot more sinister. That's the scariest thing of them all. Well, almost. There's a few more points. Number 3. Murder Machine. Murder Machine is an alternate version of Bruce Wayne who hails from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -44. Here Bruce Wayne turns to his friend and colleague Cyborg for help, building an AI to supplement Alfred after Bruce's longtime friend, butler, and father figure is tragically murdered. However, this AI is programmed to protect Bruce at all costs, which ends up leading the Alfred Protocol, as it's named here, to take over Bruce, replacing his human body with a mechanical, indestructible, and immortal one. Turning Bruce into the murder machine, the Alfred Protocol, which Bruce is now fully merged with, also takes away Bruce's ability to feel fear or sadness. I think you know where this is going. It's not going to a good place. In the end, it labels everyone a threat to Bruce and helps him to kill all those who could potentially harm him, including the entire Justice League. Pretty bleak stuff.
Number 2. AZRAEL. So right after the 1993 Nightfall storyline when Batman got wrecked by Bane, his back was broken, but he decided to pass on the Batman mantle to not Dick Grayson but instead Jean-Paul Valley, aka AZRAEL, aka Azbat. I'm gonna say this is a weird version of Batman because he's a little crazy. This run as Batman wasn't the same at all. His methods were violent, messy, and irresponsible. He was capable of defeating Bane with his new suit and stuff, so he did do a good job. He was a formidable successor in that sense, but definitely not permanent. Once Bruce did recover, he had to force Azbat to leave the position. Even the style changes were quite drastic and honestly kind of ugly. Dare I say it was kind of ugly. He has the blue and yellow armor, the claws, the dual mag weapons. It's cool, but it's nothing like the Cape Crusader we know and love. He's kind of like a Decepticon. I'm like, I don't really like a Hot Wheels Decepticon looking guy.
Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Obviously one of the darkest and scariest alternate versions of Batman out there has to be the Batman Who Laughs. This version of Batman is actually like an amalgamation of Joker and Batman, but he is ultimately an alternate of Bruce Wayne, because he is Bruce Wayne, so a little more Bruce really than Joker in the end. He used to fight crime as Batman, but one day Joker took things too far and caused Batman to snap. And not just snap internally, but externally as well, when he actually snapped Joker's neck, killing him. Joker released a special brand of Joker venom with his last breath, which Bruce breathed in. Over time, this venom made him paranoid and homicidal, and ultimately, he became the villain of the story, going so far as to kill all the members of the Bat family, knowing they would not be able to join him, or not be willing to join him, I guess I should say. Well, he killed all of them at least except one. His son Damian Wayne was offered a spot at his father's side, and he ended up taking it. Batman then became the insane Batman Who Laughs and set out to conquer and reshape the entire multiverse. Which definitely means you're pretty scary. If you are like, I'm not just gonna take over this world, I'm gonna like go beyond that.
Number 10. Thomas Wayne. Although not technically from the dark multiverse, I felt this version of Batman should be mentioned because it does have a much darker tone. In the Flashpoint timeline, Bruce is murdered by the robber Joe Chill instead of his parents, Thomas and Martha. And then, as a result, for reasons similar to Bruce, Thomas Wayne took up the personal vendetta against crime, and that led to him taking up the mantle of Batman. But unlike his son, he is much more ruthless in his acts, as he is happy to kill any criminal that gets in his way. By secretly funding his war on crime through his business, Wayne Casinos, Thomas is able to fight some of the most notorious villains Gotham has to offer, one being his own wife, Martha Wayne, the Joker of this timeline. Check out this version of Batman for yourself in his first appearance, Flashpoint Volume 2 Number 1, to see exactly why his wife is turned into the Clown Princess of Crime. Number 9. Saint Batman. An alternate version of Jean-Paul Valley hailing from the dark multiverse, who briefly took up the Batman mantle after Bruce was defeated by Wayne, feeling he was more worthy of the title of Batman. After defeating Bruce and the rest of the Bat family, Valley ruled Gotham as Saint Batman. With similar abilities and tech to Bruce Wayne's Batman, Jean-Paul also carries a venom in his suit that temporarily enhances his physical abilities and to superhuman levels. However, this has its own downfalls, as after prolonged use he's become very addicted to it. If you're interested, check out this version of Batman in Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Nightfall Number 1. Number 8. Grim Knight. Now this version of Batman is also from the Dark Multiverse and serves under the Batman Who Laughs as basically a gun for hire, acting as his second in command. In this timeline, Bruce's origin story is pretty much the same as his Prime Earth counterpart. However, he kills Joe Chill right after the murder of his parents when Chill drops his gun and gives him the opening. For the next several years, Bruce traveled the world honing his skills as an assassin and eventually returns to Gotham City to strike fear into the criminals' hearts as this universe's Batman. With a full arsenal of weapons hidden around the city of Gotham and on his person, the Grim Knight is truly merciless and not someone you want to mess with. First appearing in the Batman Who Laughs Volume 2 Number 1, Grim Knight truly shows how dark a Batman who kills can be. Number 7. The Drowned. the first of the Dark Knights on our list today. Coming from Earth number -11, similar to most Batmans, Bryce Wayne became Batwoman after her father Martin Wayne was murdered in an alley. Later, she becomes romantically involved with Sylvester Kyle, who was also murdered. This sets Bryce on a mission to kill every last metahuman, and after 18 months, she succeeds after killing Aquawoman with her own trident. In retaliation, the Atlanteans submerged all of Gotham and a large sum of the world in water, but Bryce, after many augmentations to her body and Aquawoman's trident, was able to conquer the Atlanteans and submerge the rest of the world in water. The Drowned represents Batman's fear of going too far in the fight against superhumans, his love for Catwoman, and his inability to trust anyone but himself. Number 6. Dawnbreaker. Based on the Bat Lantern from Earth 32, the Dawnbreaker from Earth number -32 is another member of the Dark Knights, with almost the exact origin story as the normal Bruce Wayne, the only difference being that this Bruce was offered a Green Lantern ring right after his parents were killed. Immediately seeking revenge on Joe Chill with his newfound powers, he seeks him out and finds him with incredible ease. At first, the ring struggles against Bruce's intent to kill Chill, but Bruce, with sheer willpower, overpowers the ring and takes Chill out for good. This sets him down a dark path and leads him to the belief that no one can stand in his way on his mission to rid the universe of evil, leading him to be the hero of Gotham that shows no mercy. Thanks to his corrupted Green Lantern ring, Bruce was able to completely overpower the Green Lantern Corps when they came for him, leading him to no longer want to be a Lantern and instead be Batman the Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker represents Batman's fear of how dangerous he would be with superpowers, but lacking his adult discipline. He also represents his inner despair taken to its extremes, and his regret over his inability to move past his parents' death. Number 5. The Devastator. On Earth -1 comes the Devastator, a terrifying hybrid of Batman and Doomsday. Now on this Earth, Superman has gone corrupt and goes on a killing spree, leaving Batman the only person to stop him. With no other option, Batman goes to his last resort and injects himself with a modified version of the Doomsay virus, turning him into the villain that it's named after and giving him the power to take down his friend once and for all. Unfortunately for him, his victory was short-lived as the virus began to spread quickly and destroy everything around him, and he was then recruited by the Batman, who laughs just moments before the destruction of his world. The Devastator represents Batman's fear of losing hope, how important his friendship with Superman is, and both the fear and regret that he can't truly trust the Man of Steel. Number 4. The Merciless. As the name suggests, this version of Batman is not one to be taken lightly. From Earth -12, Bruce and Wonder Woman have been locked in a 2-year battle to subdue the God of War Ares because he created a helmet that amplifies one's powers 100-fold. The two were able to get the helmet off of Ares, but Wonder Woman was incapacitated in the process. Grief and anger fueled, Batman decides to don the helmet, believing he could wear it without losing himself. However, once Ares was slain, Bruce was turned into a merciless warrior. So addicted to the power, he went as far to kill Diana, the woman he loved more than anything after she tried to take the helmet off of him. With pretty much unlimited power, Bruce waged a war on the entire world, killing villains first and eventually getting to the point where he murdered his fellow heroes until there was no one to stop him. The Merciless represents Batman's fear of what he would become if he started killing, how Wonder Woman helps him see the good in others, and his regret that he can't end his crusade since villains keep coming back.
Number 3. Terry McGinnis. The year is 2039, and by this point Bruce Wayne has retired from the crime-fighting life. But meanwhile, Project Cadmus director Amanda Waller was out in search of a replacement, beginning with Project Batman Beyond. A major key element was using Batman's blood samples left over from his altercations, the OG Batman. That, mixed with some nanotech solutions, we now can make the DNA of Bruce Wayne. The future, how lovely. So Amanda found the Warren McGinnis household with Warren and Mary, and the couple was psychologically identical to Thomas and Martha Wayne. Perfect. So when they thought they were going in for a flu shot, they didn't know they were actually about to be the new parents of a new Batman. Amanda almost had both of them taken out to, encourage the lonely road of the Caped Crusader growing up, but thankfully she scrapped that idea. Because we don't need the same origin story, Amanda. Give the kid a minute to figure it out. They don't have to. We don't need to. Turns out you can't avoid fate still, because down the road in Terry's teenage years, his father ended up getting killed, and Terry believed that it was actually the corrupt CEO Derek Powers behind all of it. So he got the help of Bruce Wayne, who was part of the merger with Derek Powers naturally. Then after facing off against the Joker's gang, Terry realized that Bruce was in fact this original Batman. So Terry stole his Batsuit and was determined to find justice himself. The Beyond suit is just awesome. Rocket boots, claws, cloaking device. The red and black, you can't get any better than that.
Number 2. The Red Death. Once the hero of Gotham, this Bruce Wayne was forced to seek a more extreme approach to prevent crime after losing all of his Robins. Feeling he wasn't fast enough, Bruce set his eyes on the Flash, deeming himself more worthy of the Speed Force than Barry Allen. After defeating Barry, Bruce drove them both into the Speed Force using the Batmobile after it was combined with the Cosmic Treadmill. The two merged together and became the Red Death, using his newfound powers to kill instead of stopping crime, which was much to Barry's dismay as his consciousness was still very much alive in Bruce's body. The Red Death represents Batman's fear of losing members of the Bat family, his love for them, and regret for those he failed. And his dialogue and Speed Force infection imply that he might also represent Batman's fear of getting old and the old age slowing him down. And number 1, the Batman Who Laughs. Now I know we were all waiting for this one. Hailing from the Dark Multiverse, we have Earth -22's Bruce Wayne, also known as the Batman Who Laughs. After an all-out assault from the Joker against Gotham, Bruce completely loses it and snaps the Joker's neck, which causes a mysterious gas to leak from the Joker's mouth into Bruce's body. This led to the mad descent of Bruce's sanity and his transformation into the Joker-Batman hybrid known as the Batman Who Laughs. With the abilities of the Joker and Batman combined, alongside the Jokerized Robins known as the Dark Robins, the Batman Who Laughs assembled the darkest and twisted versions of Batman across the Dark Multiverse and created the Dark Knights in order to wreak havoc on the world.